In the shadows of Chicago's 79th Street, the concrete doesn't just hold buildings, it holds grudges that span decades. This isn't just a map of blocks and avenues, it's a scoreboard written in blood, where the alliance between Evans Mob and Hit Squad has turned the Chatham neighborhood into a high-stakes kill zone. From the clinical execution of 17-year-old Julio to the high-profile ambush of a drill legend in a suburban intersection, the cycle of retaliation never sleeps. Here, a bike ride can turn into a broad daylight hit, a grocery run can be a final walk, and even a phone call apology can't bring back the young soldiers lost to the crossfire. We're diving deep into the war for the South Side, where every shot fired is a debt collected and every name on a mural is a reminder of the heavy toll paid to the streets. This is the chronicle of Evans Mob, a legacy of fire and friction. August 24th, 2012, East Chatham, Chicago. The late afternoon sun was beginning to fade on the 7900 block of South Drexel Avenue when a clinical execution shattered the neighborhood quiet. At approximately 5:42 p.m., 17-year-old Lucian Drew, known to the blocks as Julio, repping Drill City and Wiz City, was standing outside with a 42-year-old woman. In a scene of absolute calculation, a gunman riding a mountain bike emerged from the shadows and unleashed a heavy barrage of gunfire. Julio was struck multiple times in the face and abdomen, collapsing on the pavement as the shooter pedaled away into the South Side maze. The woman standing with him was struck in the thigh, narrowly escaping a more lethal fate. Julio, who lived just blocks away on South Ingleside Avenue, was rushed to Stroger Hospital of Cook County in critical condition. Despite the efforts of the surgical team, the damage was too severe. He was pronounced dead at 6:25 p.m. While witnesses on the scene remained silent and uncooperative with Area South detectives, the word on the street pointed directly to the ongoing friction between Evans Mob and Drill City. The shooter was later identified as Neko, a high-profile member of Evans Mob. This murder would eventually become a pillar in a massive legal takedown, as Neko was later sentenced to 80 years in prison for the murder of Julio and the 2014 slaying of innocent bystander Betty Howard. The loss of Julio marked a major strike in a rivalry where the lines are drawn deep in the Chatham soil. July the 16th, 2019, South Side, Chicago. The relentless cycle of retaliation claimed another veteran when the friction between Evans Mob and Hottie Way reached a lethal breaking point. On the night of July the 16th, a prominent member known to the streets as Buddha, repping the Hottie Way umbrella, was targeted and executed in a cold-blooded ambush. While the shooters attempted to blend into the shadows, the word on the street was immediate and specific. Allegations quickly surfaced naming Jerome Buchanan, known as Bones from the Evans Mob and Hit Squad circle, as the primary gunman who pulled the trigger. The hit was reportedly preceded by a tense encounter just 2 nights earlier, where individuals linked to the Evans Mob family tree were allegedly seen closing in on Buddha's position. In the aftermath of the shooting, reports suggested that Bones fled the state, seeking refuge with relatives in Wisconsin to evade the immediate heat from both the law and rival sets. Despite the calculated attempt to disappear, the streets labeled the hit a coordinated effort by the Evans Mob and Hit Squad alliance, marking another chapter of blood and betrayal. No formal charges were immediately brought, but the loss of Buddha solidified a bitter grudge between the 79th Street sets and the Hattie Way collective, leaving another name to be memorialized in the concrete. November 11th, 2019, Country Club Hills, Illinois. The violence of the city spilled into the south suburbs when a high-profile target was caught in a brazen afternoon ambush. At approximately 2:30 p.m. at the intersection of 167th Street and Pulaski Road, 30-year-old Tavares Taylor, the world-renowned drill artist known as Lil Reese, was targeted in a clinical hit. Officers responding to the scene discovered a vehicle with fresh blood pooling on the driver's seat and the pavement, but the victim had already been whisked away by a companion before authorities could arrive. Lil Reese was eventually located at South Suburban Hospital in Hazel Crest, before being rushed to Christ Medical Center in Oak Lawn in critical condition. He had sustained a catastrophic gunshot wound to the neck, an injury that sent shockwaves through the global music community. While the investigation by Country Club Hill's police officially remained open with no immediate arrests, the streets whispered a different story. Allegations quickly surfaced linking the hit to the Evans Mobb circle, specifically a member known as Butter, who was rumored to be the one who pulled the trigger. This shooting was the peak of a long-standing and volatile friction between the rapper and the 79th Street set, a rivalry that nearly ended in a suburban intersection. August 15th, 2021, South Shore, Chicago. The shadows on the 7900 block of South Manistee Avenue turned lethal during a high-stakes encounter that left the Frank Block circle in mourning. Around 11:30 p.m., 19-year-old Michael Brown, known to the streets as Lil Mike, repping Frank Block and Sosa Gang, was targeted in a sudden and violent ambush. In a desperate attempt to evade the gunfire, witnesses reported that Lil Mike tried to hop a gate, but the shooters closed the distance before he could reach safety. He was struck multiple times and pronounced dead, marking a significant loss for the Mickey Cobras on the south side. While the official police reports remained thin on suspects, the digital footprint of the drill scene immediately pointed toward a specific set of rivals. Rumors swirled that Tiquan World, specifically a member known as Lil Tay, was involved in the hit. These allegations were fueled by a deleted social media post showing Lil Tay walking on South Manistee just 1 hour prior to the shooting. However, other street accounts and rival claims have frequently linked Evans Mobb to the execution, citing the deep-seated friction between Evans Mobb and Frank Block. Despite the conflicting whispers of the back door and the rival claims of responsibility, the shooters vanished into the South Shore at night, leaving a neighborhood gripped by the promise of retaliation and a family searching for answers. October 2nd, 2018, Greater Grand Crossing, Chicago. The early morning hours at the Falcon Fuel gas station on the 800 block of East 79th Street became the scene of a chaotic and widely misreported ambush. Around 12:30 a.m., 27-year-old Anthony Carter, known to the streets as Mucci, repping Drill City and Del Mobb, was standing next to a vehicle when a gunman emerged from the darkness and opened fire. A single catastrophic round struck Mucci in the head, sending him to the pavement as the shooter fled the scene. Initially, the chaos of the night led the Chicago police and the Cook County Medical Examiner's office to pronounce him dead at the University of Chicago Medical Center. However, in a rare and miraculous twist of survival, Mucci remained alive, though he was left in a state of long-term medical care. For years, the streets whispered of his condition, with family and fellow members visiting him in hospice, where he would occasionally respond to voices and faces from his past. Despite the initial headlines, Mucci continued a grueling fight for his life behind hospital walls, while the shooters remained in the wind. This hit was claimed by individuals associated with both Evans Mobb and Hit Squad, further fueling the violent divide along the 79th Street corridor. December 27th, 2009, Chatham, Chicago. The holiday season offered no reprieve from the territorial friction on the south side when a Sunday evening was shattered by a targeted execution. At approximately 7:30 p.m., Chicago police officers patrolling the 8200 block of South Evans Avenue heard a rapid succession of gunfire echoing through the residential stretch. Simultaneously, a resident called in a report after hearing 7 to 8 rounds tear through the quiet. When authorities arrived at the scene, they discovered a 2001 Oldsmobile riddled with bullet holes, its rear driver's side window completely shattered. Inside the vehicle, 22-year-old Myron Thomas Jr., known as Myron repping Wiz City, was found slumped over the steering wheel with a catastrophic gunshot wound to the head. He was rushed to Stroger Hospital, but the damage was irreversible. He was pronounced dead at 8:36 p.m., while Calumet area detectives officially reported no immediate motive or suspects in custody. The location of the hit was significant. Myron was gunned down deep in the heart of Evans Mobb territory, and street accounts quickly attributed the hit to the growing animosity between Wiz City and the sets on Evans. The shooters vanished into the winter night, leaving behind a bullet-riddled car and another name added to the long-standing blood feud of the 79th Street corridor. June 19th, 2020, Chatham, Chicago. The midday quiet on the 8100 block of South Evans Avenue was shattered by a high-profile execution that sent shockwaves through the global drill community. At approximately 11 a.m., 26-year-old Trey Young, better known to the world as Trey Savage, a prominent artist repping MTV, 079, and Chief Keef's Glow Gang, had just dropped off his girlfriend when the shadows turned lethal. As he began to drive away, a white Mazda SUV pulled alongside his vehicle, and at least one gunman unleashed a heavy barrage of gunfire. Trey Savage was struck in the neck and shoulder, but the momentum of his car carried him forward, striking 3 parked vehicles before finally coming to a rest. In a desperate scene of chaos, his girlfriend rushed back to the car and pulled him from the driver's seat. He was rushed to the University of Chicago Medical Center, but he could not survive the hit and was later pronounced dead. While the hit was carried out in broad daylight, the investigation took nearly 10 months to reach a breakthrough. In April 2021, 20-year-old Dimitri Jackson, an affiliate of the Brain Dead faction, was apprehended in Fort Worth, Texas, and charged with first-degree murder. Prosecutors used surveillance footage from a nearby convenience store, which captured Jackson's distinct limp to link him to the white Mazda found burning in an alley the day after the shooting. Despite the arrest, the loss of Trey Savage marked a devastating strike against the Glory Boys entertainment circle, leaving another veteran of the drill era fallen on the very streets he immortalized in his music. December the 23rd, 2014, South Side, Chicago. The holiday season was cut short by a cold-blooded execution inside a crowded supermarket that left the neighborhood in shock. At approximately 3:15 p.m., 23-year-old Glenn Houston Jr., known to the streets as G Mac, repping MTV, was inside a grocery store when the doors opened to a lethal predator. In a brazen display of violence, a gunman walked directly into the store, produced a firearm, and unleashed a barrage of shots at close range. G Mac was struck multiple times and collapsed on the floor of the market as customers and employees scrambled for cover. He was pronounced dead shortly after, marking a heavy loss for the MTV circle just 2 days before Christmas. The shooter managed to flee the scene on foot, disappearing into the winter afternoon before authorities could secure the perimeter. Chicago police later released chilling surveillance footage showing the suspect's calculated movements inside the store, hoping to identify the individual behind the trigger. While the investigation remained open, the word on the street immediately linked the hit to the ongoing bloody friction with Evans Mobb. The loss of G Mac was a significant blow to his set, adding yet another name to the mounting list of casualties in the war between 79th Street and its rivals. April 6, 2012, Chatham, Chicago. The midday quiet on the 800 block of East 81st Street was shattered by a high-volume ambush that claimed the life of a teenager. In a tragic case of mistaken intent, around 12:25 p.m., 17-year-old Jaylene Armstrong, known to the streets as JRock, repping Drill City and Wiz City, was walking with a group of 4 companions when they were confronted by a lethal threat. One of the men in the group spotted a gunman walking toward them in the middle of the street and alerted the others, identifying the shooter by his street name, Suicide. As the gunman, later identified as 22-year-old Juan Robinson, opened fire, a second shooter joined the attack, unleashing a combined barrage of nearly 25 rounds. In a desperate bid for survival, JRock and a 23-year-old companion sought cover behind a parked school bus. Despite the companion shouting to Robinson, a man he had known for a decade, to stop firing, the gunmen continued their assault, riddling the bus with lead. JRock was struck in the leg during the chaos. His companion carried him to the front of a store on Cottage Grove Avenue, but JRock lost consciousness and was later pronounced dead at Advocate Christ Medical Center. In a chilling aftermath, Robinson reportedly called his longtime acquaintance that night to apologize, claiming that JRock was never the intended target. Robinson fled the state, traveling through Indiana and Michigan to evade the law, but cell phone records and witness identifications eventually locked him into the scene. He was later apprehended at his mother's home and charged with first-degree murder, while his accomplice remained at large. The loss of JRock added a heavy toll to the ongoing friction in the Chatham neighborhood, marking another young life erased by a stray bullet and a failed apology.